am glad because we have with us the man who's on every week, every Friday. He calls in. This is my uncle and well-known attorney and professor who has established himself in the work of in the legal realm, but also in the education realm. And he's going to talk a little bit about some of his history. He's going to be speaking at our Saturday Action Rally tomorrow here in San Diego. So if you are not registered or do not know about the Saturday Action Rally, I want you to call us at 619-431-3186, 619-431-3186. And also, we have received information about the civil rights leader of our time coming to San Diego, and we need you to register now. It's $30 at entry. We want you to pack the house at the Jacobs Center. Call us, 619-431-3186. The Reverend Al Sharpton is coming to town. You can register at www.nansd.net/Rev, R-E-V, Al, A-L, Sharpton, S-H-A-R-P-T-O-N, Event SD. Again, www.nansd.net/Rev Al Sharpton, Event SD. Get your tickets now. They're going to go quickly. We just got the announcement yesterday. For those of you in San Diego, register now. Let's pack the Jacobs Center out. And what is it dealing with? It's called the revival of the movement. We need a revival for times like these. A moral revival, a spiritual revival. It's your time to come on out and get that and hear from first and at the table, the Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton. So I want you to call right now and register 619-431-3186. Make your RSVP now. Do not show up at the door talking about where's my tickets, where's my seats, and you didn't register. Don't look funny if we sell out and you're the one wondering, well, I knew about it, but I waited last minute. Don't be the one standing outside talking about where's my seats at.
Well,
so register right now, 619-431-3186. And as we begin our show, I'll begin with my reflection. One of the most important things, and I welcome all of Amos Jones viewers as well on his Facebook Live. One of the most important things that we must realize is that we cannot be the ones to talk about this is where we stand, this is what we believe in, and then not produce that in the outset. If we really believe in certain things, then we must be the ones to make our beliefs known, and we must be the ones to take certain stances that others aren't able to take. So a lot of people talk about, well, I believe this and I believe that, but can you take the stances that are controversial? If you really believe this and that and the other, you should be able to take the stances. And I challenge you today, take the stance. Stand up for what you believe in and what you really stand for. When we come back, I'm going on a quick break. There's no call-ins this morning. We're going straight in to our show, and I have a special guest. We're going to talk about what is happening in San Diego tomorrow morning. He will be speaking and lots more right here on Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris. Hey, everybody. This is Reverend Shane Harris. Every Friday, I hold a live radio show at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on www.KTAV.TV. The show is called Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris, and we discuss all of the country's issues, From Washington, D.C. to your local community, social dialogue, political impact, and strategy talk. For all of our communities to realize that we don't have to get down. We got to get up and know what we doing. So it's strategy time. Every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris on KTAV.TV.
You are listening to the San Diego station of inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at KTAV.TV or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at ktav.tv/ministry.
Hey everybody, this is Reverend Shane Harris. Every Friday I hold a live radio show at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on www.ktav.tv. The show is called Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris, and we discuss all of the country's issues. From Washington, D.C. to your local community, social dialogue, political impact, and strategy talk. For all of our communities to realize that we don't have to get down. We got to get up and know what we doing. So it's strategy time. Every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris on KTAV.TV.
You are listening to the San Diego station of inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at ktav.tv or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at ktav.tv/ministry.
Hey everybody, this is Reverend Shane Harris. Every Friday I hold a live radio show at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on www.ktav.tv. The show is called Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris, and we discuss all of the country's issues. From Washington, D.C. to your local community, social dialogue, political impact, and strategy talk. For all of our communities to realize that we don't have to get down. We got to get up and know what we doing. So it's strategy time. Every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris on KTAV.TV.
You are listening to the San Diego station of inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at KTAV.TV or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV's Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at ktav.tv/ministry.
Hey everybody, this is Reverend Shane Harris. Every Friday I hold a live radio show at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on www.ktav.tv. The show is called Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris, and we discuss all of the country's issues from Washington, D.C. to your local community, social dialogue, political impact, and strategy talk for all of our communities to realize that we don't have to get down. We got to get up and know what we doing. So it's strategy time every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris on KTAV.TV.
You are listening to the San Diego Station of Inspiration, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at ktav.tv or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV's Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at ktav.tv/ministry.
Hey everybody, back live here on Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris, and I am preparing, like I said, for a visit from our national president and the civil rights leader of our time. We need to pack the house. I want you to register for Revival of the Movement. Go to www.nansd.net/Rev Al Sharpton Event SD. I want you to pack the house. It's $30 entry. That gets you in with heavy appetizers. I want you to come. We need to talk about where we're going. And it's important for you to come out. Reverend Al Sharpton's coming to San Diego. It's important for you to come out. I'm glad because today we have in studio this man who has been the most supportive person beside Bill Brown of this show and has been a consistent commentator from issues being dealt with nationally, bringing real strong commentary every week for 2 years now, I think.
Close to it.
Right around.
Close to it.
And so we are excited because he's here for the first time ever at KTAV Radio. And the reason why this is important is because this is who I've been talking with on the phone that you hear over the last year and a half, but this is the person who's brought real strong political commentary every week, who has brought breaking news on this show around educational issues in colleges, And I'm happy because he's my uncle. And he is our attorney, the attorney Amos Jones, the professor, and a leader in our communities from Washington, D.C. And he is joining me here in San Diego because tomorrow I want you to come out 10 a.m. at the National Action Network House of Justice. We will welcome him. We will have a conversation about juries. The reality is that you and I both know that communities of color are not in the jury room. And the reason why that is important is because the cases all y'all march about, from Trayvon to Brown to Olango, that happened here, those cases that you guys criticize in the public about the judges and all that, you are not represented in the jury room. And we're going to talk about this. Why is it important? What do you need to do? Why is the jury room important, and how do you get in? We're going to talk about access to jury rooms. I want you to come out. We're going to talk civil rights. Of course, you'll hear from me every Saturday. Amos Jones, the attorney, is going to be speaking at 10 a.m. He'll be up at 10:30 a.m. on stage. And we'll be joined by the Black Panthers. We'll be honoring them, the San Diego base that is left from 50 years ago, the Black Panther Party. Will be at the House of Justice. Why are we honoring them? Why are we honoring Bishop George Dallas McKinney next week, which is one of the major national figures of church and social justice? Because we believe, and I believe in this, even if we have differences in our beliefs and the way we fight issues, it should not distract us from honoring those while they're here. There's a saying that you run people's name through the street while they're here, but when they die, you want to name the street after them. Don't be the one to try to name the street after somebody that you ran into the ground. Hopefully, we can all honor them while they're here. That's why we're honoring. I got texts and emails about why are we honoring the San Diego 50th anniversary of the Black Panthers. Because they are important as well. And we honor their commitment and service to our communities. So come out 10 a.m. I want you to show up 1728 South 39th Street, San Diego, California, 92113. 10 a.m. tomorrow, February 10th. I want you in the house. It's going to be live on the radio and live streaming on our website. And I want you there. Do not miss it. Attorney Amos Jones is our keynote speaker talking about jury rooms. I want you at the House of Justice. And this will be his first appearance in San Diego as in his establishment of where he's at. This is his first appearance here, especially in the social and legal realm. And I want you all to come out because he'll be here much, much more. And we'll be working closely with him. At this time, I'm happy to introduce to many of you who have never seen him, but you heard him, my uncle, attorney and professor Amos Jones. Good morning, attorney.
Reverend Harris, it's an honor to be here in the vineyard from which you do your national advocacy on behalf of people, on behalf of victims, on behalf of businesses, and on behalf of all of those in need. So it is so good to see Ground Central, from which you labor so tirelessly and so effectively. Thank you for having me in this lovely Bayside city. It's good to be here.
Thank you. And, I heard you saying that when you were coming in that it's so beautiful that I don't want none of y'all to get offended on his Facebook Live, but he said he might not leave. So he said the weather, he said the weather was so good he might not leave, but don't be fooled. The weather is good, but there's a lot of things going on that aren't so good.
Oh, yes.
And that's why we need a NAN in San Diego, because we've been able to highlight nationally, you're right, issues that nobody knew about or paid attention to here that we've now been able to bring to the platform. Let me ask you this, because as we go into our commentary and conversation this morning, and let me say how much of an honor it is to have you in studio. It is really appalling to me, and I want to begin with your history because this is important. It's Black History Month. You come out of the King tradition, and those who directly worked for Dr. Martin Luther King, Bill Jones, pastor in Brooklyn. Tell us a little bit about your connection with the civil rights movement and your connection with Black history and how you got to where you're at now as an attorney and professor.
Sure. Well, biography is important, and I so appreciate your understanding the influences that come to various persons' lives in your own life. And in my life, I feel very privileged because the whole assumption in my household from our theological and moral position all the way up was that one is obligated to do the right thing,
right?
Which may include advocating for the correct causes,
yeah,
and on behalf of people who have not been treated correctly.
Right.
The presumption is that everybody should be treated fairly, following in the teachings of Jesus Christ first and foremost.
Right.
So I was blessed in that I came from, first and foremost, like Dr. King, a Christian home. And a serious Christian home out of a Black Christian tradition, which is to say that even in the face of slavery, it starts with slavery, that you have the competency and the capacity and the obligation to establish yourself and do what's right. So I have to go back before the family and go back to our home church, which was organized in 1790 by slaves, never under the authority of whites ever, which is important, not because there's anything wrong with being in communion with white Baptists or other people, but because it says that even before the state was a state in 1790, Kentucky became a state in 1792, even before the people had their freedom, right, from the state, they had their freedom from God. And what does the Bible say? To whom much is given, much is required. That right. means that it's not an option for you to use your legal training to serve people who need it. One of the hardest things to do is to charge for your services when you feel convicted that there are people who won't be helped if you don't intervene, or people who won't be helped to the strongest extent possible. So my family, it starts with my mother and father, who met as University of Kentucky students in 1960. My father's older brother, Bill Jones, was the first Black undergraduate with Dr. Doris Wilkinson from the University of Kentucky College of Arts and Sciences, and went on to become a brilliant minister, pastor, president of the Progressive National Baptist Convention, and a global figure of the church, who went on to glory in 2006. But my father was involved in CORE, as was my mother, because the local Congress of Racial Equality chapter was organized in the basement of the Pleasant Green Baptist Church. And there were Unitarians, there were Jewish people involved, there were, again, you talked about how there's a lot of common ground, even if you go interfaith or ecumenical or interdenominational. So it started with that, because my father's father, who had been college roommates with Martin Luther King Sr. at Morehouse in the 1920s, was the kind of man who understood that this evil ethic of discrimination and segregation could not stand. And if it was going to be torn down, it would take the collaboration of all different types of people of goodwill. So he immediately opened up his church, which we owned and controlled and still do.
And he was one of the chief lieutenants to Dr. King.
He was in a charter supporter of the Progressive National Baptist Convention in 1961 in Cincinnati, which broke from the National Baptist Convention to give a fuller voice to the civil rights movement, with the stated mission of, quote,
and the SCLC
to redeem the soul of America. So James Farmer Jr. Preached at our church. My grandfather was friends with James Farmer Sr., who I think was president of Bishop College when the great debaters were there during that era. So you have all of this going on. So, and then even before him, my father's paternal grandfather was a very active member of the NAACP in Louisville in the 1910s and 20s. He was probably a charter member. And the NAACP did great work on restrictive covenant deed cases type things in Louisville. With test cases in Louisville, they got a Black college funded by the city by essentially boycotting the University of Louisville's bond issue. So my great-grandfather, Henry Wise Jones, was doing important work. During the 38 years he pastored the Green Street Baptist Church ending in 1950. So all of this comes together. Number one, we have owned and controlled our own congregations from the beginning, which provided a platform of spiritual fearlessness and mandate. And when you combine that with the motif
that's important,
of the Israeli deliverance from bondage, that was our whole story. That also frees you up because we didn't eat from Caesar's table. So I thought when I went to college, because I was from this particular congregational experience and a family tradition, I didn't know that all black people were not involved in justice for all. You know, Jesse Jackson in Kentucky swept our eastern white counties. This is something that people don't want people to know, but white voters supported Jesse Jackson in 84 and 88 in very large numbers in the poorest, whitest counties of the eastern part of our state. Why? Because he was doing some of what Reverend Sharpton's doing now and what you're doing. This is an issue of poverty and injustice in systems. We battle against principalities.
But Jesse would, in all respect to Reverend Jackson, he did go in the political route. More than he went in the activism route.
In the end, he did.
Yeah.
He did. And in fact, it's funny because that's when his influence began to be diminished. Because, of course, what is politics? The art of compromise. And so I find that the people in my family who ran for office, my father ran for village commissioner.
That's a good point. Politics is the art of...
It's the art of compromise. It would be unethical in politics for us not to compromise, if you think it. That's why those of us who want to remain, if you will, as pure as possible, have to maintain our independence. Because if I'm going out to seek vote, I must represent. It would be malpractice of politics for me not to have coalitions. And so there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to understand your lane and your gift. My father ran for village commissioner in the suburb of Woodlawn, Ohio in the 1960s when he and my mother were building our young family, and there were eventually 7 children. I'm the 7th of 7. But he ran and lost. My Uncle Bill ran for Brooklyn Borough president in 1967 after he'd only been in town 5 years, but he was doing such great things at the Bethany Church, wound up with a staff of 27, 5,000 members. It was really kind of a mega church before there were mega churches. But at the center of it was his outstanding, thoughtful preaching and scholarship and the music and other programs of a typical congregation. So he ran for borough president in Brooklyn and came in 3rd in a field of 4. But the idea was to make a point, I think, that we are entitled to be in these positions so that later on other people who are more politically inclined, like a Maynard Jackson or a Marion Barry, can come along and do the political work that needs to be done in connection with other constituencies. So that's the history, and it's very important because in core, my father was in charge of the employment discrimination issues. When my Uncle Clayton came back to Kentucky in 1961 from Yale Law School, his job was to help establish the compliance procedures at the Kentucky Human Rights Commission. That's Uncle Lewis Clayton Jones. And he's deceased as well. He died 3 weeks before Uncle Bill died in 2006. God rest their souls. And so the point was to deal with this issue of economic empowerment, because without economic empowerment in our own things like KTAV and like Get On Up and like the National Action Network and like the Pleasant Green Baptist Church of Lexington, Kentucky, or Bethany Baptist Church of Brooklyn, New York, we won't be able to stand and put our hand in the face of injustices and tell them no more, it's over. And that's exactly what we'll be doing tomorrow at this rally, where we're going to re-empower and reinvigorate and energize and make aware this community of how they can serve at a fundamentally democratic location, the jury room, and make these crooked ways straight again, Reverend Harris.
That's a good point. And we look forward to that conversation because it is very important. If you're going to organize, jury room is very important to all of this organizing tactic. Let me ask you this. When you talk about bridging the gap, per se, or the, as you mentioned, Reverend Jackson going to politics is about the art of the compromise. What do you see as the biggest issue in the country right now in compromise? Because it doesn't even seem like there can be a compromise between political differences. How do we find compromise in this issue right now with the DACA issue, and then slash taxes, and then slash health care. How do we find a compromise, or is compromise what the president is saying? You must support what I'm going to do, or I'm going to shut the government down.
So there are substantive issues. You asked for the issues. There are substantive ones that I think are immigration, and it will be voting and apportionment. And then the second one, there are procedural compromise issues. First, I'll deal with what's on the table today, and that is the immigration, the DACA issues. We finally got a kind of compromise proffer that may wind up carrying the day, and that's basically total amnesty for these million, we call them dreamers, in exchange for some funding for some of the wall on the border with Mexico. That would be a compromise. Now, that doesn't mean that it's something that you have to endorse, but there's something in it for everybody, especially given the impasse that we are at both. So that's a compromise that may come forth. We'll see. The other area is the voter area, and I bring this up not because it's in the news at the moment, but the issue of voter fraud or voter suppression or apportionment, all these things related to the voting rights of Americans. And I'd like to point out that we have an opportunity, for example, to get our universal automatic voter registration that Senator Clinton, Secretary Clinton, Hillary was for when she started out running for president back in 2015, way back then. Before 2016 even came, she was telling black college students that she wanted universal automatic voter registration. That seems extreme. You could have that maybe with a national voter ID. I mean, that would be a compromise. That way you address people who claim there's fraud, and you address people who claim that there's suppression, and you make a comment, and everybody's happy and everybody's not happy, like what happens in real life or at the end of a war. I'm sitting in San Diego. San Diego became an American city after the end of a war in the late 1800s, the Mexicans and Americans at war, and that was one of the final things to hammer out, who gets San Diego. And it was agreed by treaty. The U.S. got San Diego. Lovely Tijuana is just down below here in Mexico. But the point is
that's where we were supposed to go to.
We were supposed to go there, and when I was landing, I looked out the window yesterday and said, "Oh, beautiful landing bay. There's Mexico. I can't wait." Then I remembered I forgot my passport. So they tell me you can try to go, but I don't want to take a chance. So that'll be next time. But the point is, that was a compromise, and there's been peace ever since along our border with Mexico. So that's the substantive. The procedural, Reverend Harris, is the real issue. These parties on both sides have begun to dig in these positions, and we had a shutdown while you were asleep, everybody. The government shut down for a few hours and then was reopened when the House finally passed a spending bill. We have a bunch of money going into politics on both sides that is very rich on the left and the right, and that is demanding that their political parties that they're lined up with do their bidding at all cost. And that's what's leading to this. Super rich people have a problem compromising because they can buy whatever they want. That's what happens when you get rid. The Bible says it will be easier for a camel to make it through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to make it beyond the gates of heaven and all near. Why? That doesn't mean money's bad at all. No, not. But when you get so rich, you start to think you can have and do whatever you want to, and you may even start your own religion.
Right.
That's what happens with pride and ego. So we got that money in politics, and that's why people won't compromise anymore, Reverend Harris.
That's a good point. So let me ask you this, because where we're going in the next few weeks is important when you talk about DACA and this DACA issue, which both Republicans and Democrats feel connected to. I guess the question would be for you, how do we deal with this DACA issue, particularly, and find compromise on this? Because I do believe that there are criminals that come into the country, and they should not be here. But there are really good young people who have come here looking for opportunity, and they access it, and now they're being told you got to get out of our country. Whose country is it, and how do we find compromise on the DACA issue?
We find compromise by asserting a common ground. Now, studies and polls have shown that something like 80% of Americans claim to favor allowing these these dreamers, because some of them are 40, to have pathway to citizenship. And it started off with them, they're having to pay, I think, $500.
Right.
So with all due respect, Chief of Staff Kelly was completely wrong to call people lazy. They probably didn't have the $500 to get into the program in the first place. But what you have here is some common ground right there. But number two, the realism has to kick in. Even if you hate illegal immigration, what are you going to do when somebody was 1 year old and they were brought here and they don't even know Spanish and they've lived here like normal and they've done everything correct? Are you really going to send them back to Guatemala, really? I think that's why America's... So you almost can't just send them home.
Right.
So there's the common ground. The points of disagreement, of course, are, well, what about their parents? It's chain immigration or chain migration. You got to deal with that. Well, we may have to... People on the left may have to allow, like Congressman Gutierrez said, the Hispanic stalwart.
And he'll be here.
Let me build the wall it's going to save these people.
He's here today.
He's a great person. And I don't know whether he walked
He's here today.
But he was on point. You know, and also he was on point by challenging Congresswoman Pelosi. I saw him on TV the other day talking about how this is lip service.
We're going to go. He's here today.
Good, because I've watched him, and that's what you ought to do. You got to save your people. And sometimes that wall is not going to technically hurt anybody. It's just an emotional problem. Oh, that's not who we are. You know what? If it's going to save 1 million people, you know, if black people were going to get reparations in exchange for a voter ID, do you know how many black people would sign up for a voter ID to get the reparations, despite the fact that voter IDs might smack a voting rights violation? Okay, so see, we got to deal with the real people. And that's where you get to the compromise. So I commend Congressman Gutierrez because he's been on this, and he's, I think, willing to make a deal.
And I'm glad you brought that up because he's here in San Diego. For those of you here today, he is here. Representative Gutierrez will be speaking at San Diego State University, and we're going to make a trip over there because I was personally invited. I think all of you should come to hear what he has to say. He's going to be leading a rally with Amar Kempa, who is battling for Representative Duncan Hunter's seat here, a Republican in the 50th district. Yes. So those of you who are out there, San Diego State University, and call 619-431-3186 for details if you want to know the specifics, but definitely. So let me ask you this. You know, the biggest issue that we've had is that we are in such a divided country. We can't find compromise in so many cases. Would you say that this is the president's fault that this is happening?
The president is a symptom, I think.
Okay.
President Barack Obama was completely correct in that State of the Union address several years ago in which he declared that the decision in Citizens United, which was the corporate funding of this video against Hillary Clinton, and that the allowing of that kind of activity would open the floodgates of unregulated money into politics. That's what happened. President Obama was completely correct, and he was also pragmatic in declaring as well later that the Democrats are going to have to do this too. And he raised more money than the Republicans. $1 billion was raised in the campaign of 2012. And it wasn't coming from the $20 donors and the grassroots, that $1 billion, the Democratic Party. And so
CNN is reporting that there's a big victory for Trump.
Breaking news.
That he's retrieved a big victory because he walked away with a turbulent week. This is polls from CNN for those of you who are watching.
He's going to get to fund the military
right
by $300 billion more.
Now,
and domestic spending caps. So if the caps.
Democrats got things out of this too. What is the balance here, and how does this look? Do you think?
Well, I'm sure there's social spending in there. I'm sure there's maybe CHIP for the children who don't have insurance spending. And it's a compromise. You know, it's as Patrick Buchanan lamented back when President Bush did this after the invasion of Afghanistan, a true conservative, it's guns and butter and tax cuts too.
Here's
and
what,
the deficit goes on into the trillions.
Here's what Senator Schumer had to say just a few minutes ago. Let's listen in.
we're tuning into
instead
Senator
of just
Schumer's
going to our
remarks
own
now.
separate corners,
They're live for my
we
audience.
All right, we're going to go
Let
back
me
again.
thank the
Senator
Republican
Schumer
leader
speaking.
for his comments and his work these past several months. We have worked well together for the good of the American people. We had serious disagreements, but instead of just going to our own separate corners, we came together with an agreement that is very good for the American people and recognizes needs that both sides of the aisle proffered. I'm pleased to announce that we have reached a 2-year budget deal to lift the spending caps for defense and urgent domestic priorities far above current spending levels. There are 1 or 2 final details to work out, but all the principles of the agreement are in place. The budget deal doesn't have everything Democrats want. It doesn't have everything Republicans want, but it has a great deal of what the American people want. After months of legislative...
So they come down to this budget agreement. Give us the analysis of what's this means for the next weekend. We're going to close the show. For those of you, many have known where we're headed in San Diego regarding the major visit happening from our national leader, and lots happening. So we definitely are going to keep you engaged. But let's get the last word from Amos Jones. And
So what we just heard with Senator Schumer, he's happy because in that spending cap increase to the tune of $300 billion, there's something for Democrats than the left, and there's something for the right in President Trump's priorities. One day the bill will come due. It always does. The good news is we saw it work when President Clinton raised taxes, and we got a surplus after 8 years of over $100 billion. So there will be an adjustment and correction down the road. For now, Reverend Harris, everybody's happy except complete deficit hawks like Senator Rand Paul, who threw a wrench in it at the last minute to make the point that he said somebody has to stay conservative and true to conservative aims. So that faction will be continually upset and with heartburn, but the other 85% of the country can count some benefit in this increase.
well, attorney and our professor always hammering it down. I, of course, thank everyone for tuning in. Those of you who consistently tune in, we have high weeks, we have low weeks, but consistency is key. And I can guarantee you this is a historic moment. You may not, all of you out there may not realize it now, but you will see it later. And I thank my uncle and our attorney. Tomorrow, you can join me at the House of Justice as we welcome Attorney Amos Jones, 1728 South 39th Street, San Diego, California, 92113. It's already becoming a historic House of Justice as we're expecting visits from both the Reverend Al Sharpton and Michael Eric Dyson's to our San Diego House of Justice in the next 2 weeks alone. First week of March, Tiffany Crutcher and Attorney Ben Crump will join us at the House of Justice, so it is becoming quite historic very quickly. And I encourage you all to, right now, go to www.nansd.net/Rev Al Sharpton Event SD and register. Show up to the revival of the movement. We need you out there. And I want to thank Attorney Amos Jones, my uncle, my good friend, and our professor and attorney. Again, he'll be live at the House of Justice tomorrow, 10 a.m., live broadcast rally at the House of Justice, 1728 South 39th Street, San Diego, California, 92113. Join us there at the National Action Network. And thank you all for tuning in every week. Have a great weekend. And remember, whatever you do, however you do it, whichever way you do it, don't give up. Get up and stand up for what you believe in and stand up for who you are. Your identity will be challenged. Your identity will be challenged. But you must know